Rain spit against the windshield as Roman Steele slammed the heel of his palm against the steering wheel. "Unbelievable," he muttered, staring at the blinking dashboard of his matte black Aston Martin. The engine was dead, on a two-lane road in the middle of nowhere. No cell service. No cars for miles, just endless trees and a sky that looked like it might open up any second. He wasn't used to this kind of inconvenience. Not when his Manhattan penthouse had a concierge who could fetch his coffee before he even woke up. Not when he had assistants, drivers, and a calendar that practically ran itself, but this was what he got for listening to his therapist. "Take a break," she said. "Go for a drive, clear your head." Well, his head was plenty clear now, and soaked with rain. He stepped out of the car, the gravel crunching under his expensive leather shoes. His tailored suit clung to him immediately, the rain unapologetic. The nearest town was at least 5 miles back, and he hadn't passed a single building since. "Perfect," he muttered under his breath. A rusted pickup truck rounded the bend behind him, tires hissing over wet asphalt. It slowed when it neared his car. The driver's window rolled down. A woman leaned over, her elbow resting on the window frame. "You okay?" she asked. Roman blinked. She was young, mid-20s maybe. Her auburn hair was pulled into a messy braid, and her hoodie looked like it had seen better days, but her eyes were sharp, clear, and full of concern. "I'm fine," he said automatically. Then, realizing how that sounded, added, "Well, my car isn't. It just died." She looked at the Aston Martin like she didn't quite believe him. "That thing thought those were bulletproof." Roman gave a humorless laugh. "Apparently not." She pulled her truck onto the shoulder and got out. Rain beaded across the shoulders of her jacket as she walked around the front of his car. "Pop the hood," he hesitated. "You know how to fix these?" She raised an eyebrow. "Try me." Roman sighed and pulled the latch. She propped the hood up and leaned in, hands moving with practiced ease. He watched her, stunned. She wasn't pretending. She knew exactly what she was doing. After a few minutes, she wiped her hands on a rag pulled from her back pocket. "You've got a blown fuse. Battery's fine, engine's fine, but something's shorted out." "You're not going anywhere unless you've got a spare." He stared at her. "You're serious?" "Dead serious." She shut the hood. "I've got some tools and a few parts in the truck. Might have what you need, or I can give you a ride into town. You're just offering to help." "Like that?" She tilted her head. "Would you rather I drove past and left you here?" "No," he said quickly. People don't usually stop for strangers anymore." She shrugged. "You don't look like a serial killer." "Just a rich guy with bad luck." Roman tried not to laugh, but it escaped anyway. "You're not wrong," she grinned finally. "I'm Elsie Taylor." "Roman Steele," he replied, shaking her hand. Her grip was firm, warm, steady. "Well, Roman Steele, I'll check my parts bin. If I have what you need, we'll have you out of here in no time. If not, you're riding shotgun." He leaned against the car, watching her climb into the back of her pickup to rifle through a battered red toolbox. The rain didn't seem to bother her. She moved with ease, like someone used to dirt under her nails and hard work. Roman glanced back at his car, then at the woman who had just pulled over without question to help a stranger. She found the part, somehow, miraculously. Within 15 minutes, she had it installed and the car humming again. He stared at the dashboard and then at her. "You're kidding." Elsie wiped her hands and slammed the hood shut. "Told you, I grew up fixing cars with my dad. He owned a shop outside of town. You just saved me hours of walking, probably $1,000 tow, and more than a little humiliation." She laughed. "Glad I could spare your ego." Roman looked at her for a long moment. She was smiling, but it wasn't forced, it was real. She wasn't trying to impress him. She didn't even know who he was or how much he was worth. "Let me take you to dinner," he said suddenly. Her eyebrows shot up. "What? You just saved me. It's the least I can do." "Let me buy you dinner." Elsie looked him over like she was trying to figure out if he was serious. "I don't usually go out with guys I meet on the side of the road." "That makes 2 of us," Roman said. "Come on, just one meal." She hesitated, then slowly nodded. "All right. But if you turn out to be a weirdo, I'm walking." Roman smiled. "Deal." They met at a small restaurant in town an hour later. Roman had changed into dry clothes at a boutique hotel nearby when he booked on a whim, needing more time. When she walked in, wearing jeans and a green flannel shirt, he stood up instinctively. "You clean up nice," she teased. "You didn't have to meet me." "I wanted to," she said, settling into the seat across from him. Dinner was easy, conversation even easier. She told him about her dad's old garage, how she was trying to reopen it after the pandemic forced it to close. He told her, not much, just that he worked in finance. He didn't lie, he just didn't elaborate. After dinner, he walked her to her truck. The rain had stopped and the sky was clear, painted with stars. "Thanks for dinner," she said. "Thank you for saving me." She looked at him for a long second, then said softly, "You're not like I expected. Neither are you," and before either of them could overthink it, he leaned in. So did she. The kiss was soft at first, then warmer, real. When they pulled back, Elsie blinked. "Well, that was unexpected." Roman smiled, eyes locked on hers. "Yeah, but I'm not complaining." Neither was she. The next morning, Roman stood on the narrow balcony of his hotel suite, coffee in hand, staring out at the sleepy town as early sunlight touched the rooftops. The distant chime of a church bell broke the silence, grounding him in a place that felt worlds away from his usual skyline of glass towers and constant pressure. He hadn't planned to stay another night, but after dinner with Elsie, he hadn't been able to walk away. There was something in the way she looked at him, unfiltered, curious, like she saw a man and not the empire behind him. He ran a hand through his still damp hair. His assistant was probably losing her mind, and his calendar had meetings stacked from floor to ceiling. But none of it felt urgent right now. He needed to see her again. By the time he pulled up to the garage on the edge of town, the sun was fully up. The building was old but sturdy, with a corrugated metal roof and faded signage above the sliding doors that read Taylor's Auto Service. A single bay door was open, and Elsie was underneath a truck, legs sticking out from beneath the chassis. Roman walked inside, the scent of oil and metal thick in the air. "Didn't expect to see you this early," she said from under the truck, her voice echoing slightly. "Most people aren't eager to revisit their car troubles." "I'm not most people," Roman said, stepping around a coil of hose. She rolled out from beneath the truck and sat up, wiping her brow with the back of her wrist. "You really came back." "I wanted to return the favor." Elsie gave him a sidelong look, skeptical but amused. "You don't exactly strike me as the wrench-turning type." "I wasn't planning on fixing anything." Roman set a paper bag on a nearby tool cart. "I brought breakfast from the diner down the road. The woman behind the counter said you always order the same thing. Egg sandwich, no cheese, black coffee." She blinked, then rose to her feet slowly, wiping her hands on a shop towel. That was either very thoughtful or very stalkerish. "Let's go with thoughtful," he said. She took the bag and peeked inside. "Okay. I'll give you points for effort." He leaned against the wall, watching her unwrap the sandwich and take a bite. "I meant what I said last night," Roman added. "You didn't have to help me, but you did." "That's rare." Elsie chewed quietly, then said, "You'd be surprised how many people break down out here. Most of them don't talk to me afterward." "I'm not most people," he repeated. She studied him for a long moment. "You're definitely something else." Roman didn't flinch. "What if I told you I wanted to help with the garage?" Her eyes narrowed. "You don't even live here." "I don't," he admitted. "But I know how to get things moving. I know investors. I know how to write checks when it counts." "And why would you want to do that for me?" "Because I believe in people who don't wait for handouts, people who get under trucks and fix what's broken." Elsie folded the sandwich wrapper neatly and tossed it into the bin. "I'm not running a charity." "I don't want your money." "I didn't say I'd hand you anything. I said I'd help. There's a difference." She crossed her arms. "Are you always this persistent? Only when it matters?" A beat passed between them, tense, uncertain, but Elsie didn't look away. "Fine," she said finally. "You want to help? I've got a parts order to organize and a supplier who hasn't answered his phone in 3 days. You can handle that while I finish this truck." Roman straightened. "You're serious?" "I'm dead serious. There's a desk in the back. Computer's old, but it works. If you're going to pretend to be useful, you might as well start now." He didn't hesitate. "Show me where it is." The back office was small, cluttered with invoices and a calendar that hadn't been flipped since April. Roman rolled his sleeves up and sat at the desk. scanning the supplier's website, then picking up the phone. By the time noon rolled around, he'd tracked down the missing order, negotiated a better delivery window, and found a cheaper supplier for brake pads. When he stepped out of the office, Elsie was wiping her hands and tossing a pair of gloves onto the workbench. "You actually did it?" she asked, surprised. "I told you I'm good at getting things done." She looked at him with a new kind of consideration. "You're not just a guy in a fancy suit, are you?" "No," Roman said quietly, "but I've been pretending to be one for a long time." Elsie didn't respond right away. Then she grabbed her jacket from a hook by the door and nodded toward the lot. "Come with me." They drove in her pickup, the windows down and the air just warm enough to be pleasant. She took a turn onto a gravel road that led to a clearing surrounded by tall trees. A rusted swing set stood near a crumbling picnic table, and beyond it, the remains of a fire pit. "This was my dad's favorite spot," she said, climbing out. "He used to bring me here after long days at the garage, said it cleared his head." Roman followed her, taking in the quiet serenity of the place. "He's gone, 3 years now." "Heart attack?" She crouched near the fire pit, picking up a charred branch and tossing it aside. "I've been trying to keep this place going on my own ever since." Roman sat beside her, the crunch of gravel beneath him the only sound for a long moment. "I lost my mom when I was a kid," he said eventually. "My dad handled it by burying himself in work, built a business empire so he wouldn't have to feel anything." Elsie looked over at him. "Is that what you did?" "I inherited the empire and the silence." She nodded slowly, her gaze steady. "You're not what I expected." Roman turned to her, the wind brushing against his face. "Neither are you." And this time, when their hands brushed, neither of them pulled away. Roman stood in the center of the garage office, his phone pressed to his ear, gaze fixed on the cracked linoleum floor. "No, reschedule the meeting with Felix. Push the quarterly review to next week, and cancel the dinner with the investors. I'll handle it remotely." He hung up before the assistant could argue. If he didn't stop checking in, someone from his board would be showing up with a private investigator. Outside the office window, Elsie was lifting a tire off the back of a delivery truck, her posture taut with effort. Roman stepped out, instinctively reaching for the other side. "You don't need to help with that," she said, breath short. "I know." "But I want to." She gave him a quick look, almost like she was still deciding what to make of him. "You ever lifted a full tire before?" "Not once," he admitted, grunting as the weight settled in his arms. "Well, congrats. That's a good way to pull your back." They set the tire down together near the rack. Roman straightened with a wince. "So this is what it's like doing something that actually matters." Elsie wiped her hands on her jeans. "You're not half bad." "For someone who probably hasn't opened his own mail in 5 years. He chuckled, then glanced around the garage. "What's the plan with this place, long-term?" She hesitated, the smile flickering. "I want to expand, add another bay. Maybe hire someone full-time so I'm not doing every oil change myself. But banks don't love lending to people with old buildings and no collateral." Roman leaned against the wall, watching her pace. "And you haven't taken on a partner?" "I've had offers," she said, voice hardening. "But they all want control. My dad built this place from the ground up. I'm not handing it off to someone who thinks it's just a stepping stone to a condo development." "What if someone wanted to back you without taking a single brick away from you?" Elsie paused, brow furrowing. "You offering again?" Roman met her eyes. "I am." She crossed her arms. "What's the catch?" "There isn't one." "There's always a catch." He stepped closer, his tone quiet but unwavering. "I don't want your business. I just want to see what you could do if someone actually believed in you." Elsie's jaw tightened. "You don't even know me." "I'm starting to." She looked away, jaw working, then suddenly turned and walked toward the open bay door. Roman followed. Outside, the sun had dipped low, casting long shadows across the lot. Elsie sat on the back bumper of the delivery truck and motioned for him to sit beside her. "You know why I stopped for you?" she asked after a moment. He shook his head. "Because you looked like you'd never been told no." Roman tilted his head. "And you wanted to be the first. I wanted to see what you'd do when life didn't go according to plan. And you didn't lose your mind. That's a start." He laughed under his breath. "You're tougher than most of the CEOs I've met." I've had to be, she said simply. They sat in silence for a beat, the air between them heavier now, not awkward but charged with something unspoken. Then Elsie said, I have a question for you. Ask. Why haven't you told me what you really do? Roman didn't answer at first. He looked out over the cracked pavement, the weeds growing up through the edges. Because when I told you I worked in finance and you didn't flinch. I wanted to keep that moment, she frowned. What moment? The one where you didn't see me as a walking wallet. Elsie was quiet for a long stretch. Then softly, so what do you actually do? I run Steele Equity Group. It's private capital. We invest in real estate technology infrastructure. He paused. Last year, we cleared over $900 million in profit. Her eyes widened just slightly. Okay, so finance was underselling it. I didn't lie. No, she agreed. But you didn't trust me either. I didn't want to change how you looked at me. Elsie stood slowly, brushing off her hands. You think I care about the size of your bank account. I didn't want to find out the hard way. She looked down at him, unreadable. Then maybe you've been spending time with the wrong people. Roman stood as well. Maybe I have, a beat past. Then she said, I need to lock up. Can you grab the breaker? He followed her instructions, flipping the main switch and plunging the garage into shadow. They stepped out into the evening air, the gravel crunching beneath their feet. Are you staying in town again? She asked, not looking at him. I was planning to. She nodded once. There's a fall festival downtown tomorrow, food stalls, music, the whole thing. He smiled. Are you inviting me? I'm saying I'll be there. If you show up, that's on you. Roman's grin deepened. Then I guess I'll see you there. Her eyes lingered on his for a moment longer than necessary. Good night, Roman. Good night, Elsie. He watched her drive away, taillights glowing against the darkening sky. And for the first time in years, Roman felt the pull of something that wasn't business, wasn't obligation, just possibility. The scent of kettle corn and wood-fired pizza drifted through the evening air as Roman stepped onto Main Street, now transformed into a glowing corridor of string lights and music. Booths lined both sides, crowded with locals browsing handmade goods and sipping cider from paper cups. Children darted between hay bales, and a bluegrass band played near the town square gazebo. It was the kind of scene Roman had only ever seen through tinted car windows or in films that didn't reflect his life. Yet here he was, walking alone down a street where no one knew his name, no one expected anything from him except maybe one woman. He spotted her near the center of the square, standing beside a table stacked with engine cleaner samples and flyers for Taylor's auto service. She wore a dark denim jacket over a faded t-shirt, her hair pulled into a low twist at the nape of her neck. Her hands moved as she spoke to an older couple, pointing at the pamphlet and gesturing toward her truck, parked nearby with a side banner advertising free diagnostics. Roman waited until she was alone again before approaching. Didn't expect a booth, he said, stopping beside her table. Elsie glanced over, her expression unreadable. Didn't expect you to actually show. Then we're both surprising each other. She shifted her weight, adjusting a stack of coupons. This whole thing, it's about visibility. If people remember I'm here, maybe they'll think of me before driving 30 minutes to a dealership. You should have told me, I would have helped you set up. I didn't want the optics of a stranger swooping in and taking over. I'm not a stranger anymore. Elsie tipped her head slightly. No. You're not. They stood in silence for a moment, the sound of laughter and a nearby banjo filling the space between them. Roman looked around. This town's different than I imagined. I thought everyone would be suspicious of outsiders. They are, she said. Until you hang around long enough to prove you're not just passing through. His eyes found hers. What if I don't want to pass through? She didn't answer right away. Then, you said you came out here to clear your head. Did it work? It did something better. It reminded me what it feels like to not be needed by everyone except myself. Her arms crossed loosely over her chest. You're used to being in control. Too much of it, maybe. And now, Roman stepped closer. Now I'm trying to learn how to trust someone else's direction. Elsie exhaled slowly. That's a big shift. Most people don't change just because of a flat tire and a sandwich. I didn't change. He paused. I just finally stopped pretending I didn't want more than what I had. Her gaze narrowed slightly, not suspicious, curious. And what do you want, you? He said simply. Not as a thank you or a detour, I want to build something real with you. I want to be part of this life, not just drop in when it's convenient. A flicker of something crossed her face, and then she glanced around, as if making sure no one was listening. You're serious? I've never been more. She reached into her back pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper, pressing it into his hand. That's the first blueprint for the second bay I want to build. I've been sitting on it for over a year. He unfolded it, scanning the sketch of the garage addition carefully drawn, annotated but clearly unfinished. Her handwriting dotted the margins with questions: lift capacity, drainage, permit timing. I was waiting for the right time, Elsie said. The right partner, but I didn't know if that person existed, someone who'd help without changing everything. Roman looked up. You've already built the foundation, I just want to help you finish what you started. She took a shaky breath, something breaking open in her expression. Then I guess I should warn you I'm stubborn, allergic to nonsense, and I won't ever let someone take over my life. That's exactly the woman I've been looking for. A horn sounded near the bandstand, and the lights dimmed slightly as the town mayor stepped up with a microphone. People began to gather, drifting toward the center of the square. Elsie reached for his hand without hesitation. Come on, you're not getting out of the group photo? Roman's fingers closed around hers. Only if I get to stand next to you. You're already there. They walked together into the crowd, and someone handed them a pair of plastic cups filled with mulled cider. Roman raised his in a silent toast. She clinked hers against it, smiling not polite or amused, but open and real. Later, after the crowd dispersed and the booths began to fold down, Roman drove them to the clearing Elsie had shown him days before, the truck bed filled with blankets and leftover cider. They didn't talk much. They didn't need to. The sky above them stretched wide and starlit, and Roman lay beside her, one arm draped across her waist, her head resting against his chest. I've spent years building things that never filled me, he said quietly. And in a week you made me feel like I belong somewhere. You do, she whispered. Here, with me. He turned to her, brushing a strand of hair from her face. I want to stay, not just visit, not just drop in. I want to build that second bay with you, then a third. Hell, maybe a chain of garages in every town with broken roads and people worth stopping for. Her fingers curled around his. I don't need a chain, I just need someone who shows up every time. I will, Roman said, voice thick. Every time. And under the stars, in the back of a rusted pickup, a millionaire who once measured life in quarterly earnings and boardroom victories finally understood what it meant to invest in something that couldn't be bought. Love, earned the long way, on a road he never meant to take. They stayed there until the sun began to rise, wrapped in warmth, laughter, and a promise that this time neither of them would be driving away. Roman adjusted the collar of his shirt as he stepped into the town hall's side entrance, the scent of fresh paint and sawdust still lingering in the air. The building had been under renovation for months, but tonight it had been transformed with white linen-covered tables, soft amber lighting, and a string quartet tuning their instruments near the front. The town's annual autumn benefit gala, usually a modest affair, had received an unexpected upgrade courtesy of a quiet donation made under the name Taylor Restoration Fund. Elsie had no idea. He spotted her near the punch table, her auburn hair swept up into a loose knot, a deep navy dress skimming her frame in a way that made everything else in the room blur. She was talking to the mayor and gesturing toward the silent auction items, unaware that Roman was watching her like she'd just stepped out of a dream he hadn't known he'd been having for years. You clean up better than most of Manhattan, she said as he approached. He leaned in, lowering his voice so only she could hear. You look like the reason stars fall, Elsie flushed, but didn't look away. You never stop, do you? Not when I've got something worth chasing. She glanced around, her brow knitting as she took in the upscale lighting, the upgraded buffet, the subtle sophistication of the decor. This doesn't feel like the usual town budget. It isn't, Roman said, offering her his arm. I had some extra resources, thought this town deserved a night that felt like a celebration, not a compromise. She hesitated. You did this. I did it because it matters to you. That's reason enough. You didn't even put your name on it. I'm not here for credit, Elsie. I'm here for you. They danced once, then again, the music shifting from classic string arrangements to a slower, more intimate rhythm. Around them, the room melted into soft laughter and the clink of glasses, but Roman barely noticed. All he could focus on was the way her fingers curled against his shoulder, the warmth of her breath near his jaw, the way she fit against him as though she had always been meant to. I used to think I had everything, he said quietly. But I was just running laps in a glass box. You broke it wide open. Elsie looked up at him, her expression unreadable. You're not going back, are you? I already made the call. The board's getting a new chairman. I'm retaining shares, but I'm stepping away from the day-to-day. Her eyes widened. You're serious. I want a different life, one with real stakes, real roots. One that includes a stubborn mechanic who doesn't care how many zeros follow my name. She pulled back slightly, her fingers tightening around his. You're really staying. I bought the old service station lot next to yours, figured we could use the space for the expansion. Maybe even a second building, something built by both of us. She shook her head slowly, disbelieving but not resistant. You worked all this out without even telling me. I was going to, but I wanted to show you, not just say it. Her voice caught, barely above a whisper. You've already done more than anyone ever has. Roman cupped her face gently. I'm not going anywhere, not unless you tell me to. I'd be crazy to, she murmured. You're the best thing that's ever happened to me on the side of a road. He kissed her then, slow and certain, right there in the middle of the town hall. People clapped. Someone whistled. The mayor raised her glass, but Roman didn't hear any of it. All he felt was Elsie herself, whole, brilliant and brave and completely his. Later, when the gala had ended and the lights had dimmed, they returned to the garage. But this time, they didn't park in the lot. Roman led her around the side to the newly poured foundation behind the original bay. Construction starts next week, he told her, but I wanted you to see it first. She stepped onto the concrete, the cool surface echoing beneath her heels. This is really happening, he nodded. We'll build it together. Every bolt, every beam. And after that, I was thinking we take a few days off. I booked a place up North Cabin, Lake, no phones. She turned to him, eyes bright. You're full of surprises. I've got one more. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Elsie froze, mouth parting slightly as he dropped to one knee on the freshly set concrete. I know we haven't done things the usual way, but I don't want to wait. I want a messy, beautiful, real life with you. I want oil on my shoes and your name on my mail. Will you marry me? Elsie stared down at him, her hands trembling, lips parted in shock. Then she nodded hard. Yes, yes, Roman. He slid the ring onto her finger and she dropped to her knees beside him, pulling him into a kiss that stole the rest of the night right out from under them. They married 6 weeks later. The ceremony was held in the clearing Elsie's father had loved, with wildflowers in mason jars and a string quartet borrowed from the town gala. Her dress was simple, her boots dusty, and Roman had never looked more at home than standing beneath that crooked old oak tree waiting for her. The garage expanded. The second bay opened. A third followed a year later. They hired 2 full-time mechanics, then 4. Roman handled the logistics and finances, always staying behind the scenes while Elsie ran the floor with her sleeves rolled up and her clipboard in hand. They bought a farmhouse on the edge of town, surrounded by open fields and a wraparound porch where they shared coffee every morning and wine every night. On Sundays, they drove the back roads with the windows down and no particular destination. He never missed the penthouse. She never stopped looking at him like he'd surprised her all over again. And every time she passed the photo on the garage wall, the one of the two of them at the autumn gala, dancing like the world had stopped, she smiled. Because it had. And it had started again, only better.